Michael, hey, welcome back. So before I press play on the recording device here, so this is for YouTube, if it does make it to YouTube. I just want to say hi and welcome back. And hey, it's been like almost a year since you've been on this.
Has it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's been that long. Well,
Yeah.
It's nice to be back.
Yeah, it's just awesome to have you back. It's just like, and I hope the viewer here on YouTube appreciates that, and feels not appreciates, but feels part of this. It's like there's such an easy kind of rapport and just this like good fun that we have whenever we have a chat, whether or not we're recording. It's just awesome. I love it. I love it. All right, so let's crack in. Hey, I'm gonna press this. Oh, right. Well, that's disappointing.
I don't know what you're doing. So.
There is an SD card in the device, but I just press record, and it's like no SD card. Actually, I think you'll find there is. All right, let's try that again. And there we go. There's lots of red numbers there indicating recording. All right. Hey, welcome to Connection Over Coffee with me, Phil McAuliffe, the Loneliness Guy. In this conversation, we're going to have another chat. We're welcoming back my friend Michael DiIorio from Wellismo Coaching to talk about hookup apps. Say hi, Michael.
Hi, Phil. Hi, everyone. It's great to be back.
Well, Michael, it's just awesome to have you as always. But before we launch into one of the most epic chats ever, I just need to say that this podcast contains content relating to the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of gay men. If that's going to offend you or anyone in earshot, now's the time for you to kindly move on. But with all of that said, if you're down for a great conversation, how about you and Michael go get us a table and I'll go get the coffee sorted.
Off we go.
Off we go. And I'm just going to take a strategic sip of my coffee. It's too late for coffee there for you, isn't it?
Yeah, for me it is. Absolutely. It's 6:30.
All right. Well, I'll be drinking enough coffee for the both of us.
Thank you.
All right, here you go. Now, if this is the first time that you've pressed play on an episode of Connection Over Coffee with the Loneliness Guy, I want to say a huge welcome and an even bigger welcome back to you if you're joining us again for another coffee. Either way, I know that you probably have wrestled within yourself about pressing play on this episode. And that kind of internal wrestling is you wrestling with the stigma of loneliness and perhaps the thoughts and feelings that you might actually be in simply pressing play, admitting that you're a failed human. Not at all, not down for any of that shit here at the Loneliness Guy, because what you've just done is recognize that you are a human and particularly a gay man experiencing loneliness. That makes you awesome. That makes you like just this fantastic human who recognizes your humanity. Well done. I'm proud of you. And you've picked another great conversation to press play on, because whenever Michael and I get together, it's just like this, I don't know, it's fun. It's fun. And I just like bask in his wisdom. And yeah, I know.
It's a little hair toss there. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic. And Michael, we're going to be having a chat today about hookup apps and particularly how we gay men, full stop, well, not full stop, there's another part of the sentence to go, how we gay men experience or use hookup apps, with taking another step, how gay men experiencing loneliness can engage with hookup apps, and what that does for us, what that does to us when we might not be aware of the thoughts and feelings of loneliness. They might be kind of manifesting as something else within us, but we use them. Whatever kind of state we're in. So when the topic came up, you came to mind because you've got a whole lot of content on this in your work at Wellismo Coach, don't you? Coaching, don't you?
Yes, I do. I mean, I'll speak specifically to Grindr. I've been a Grindr user since I think it was born, so forever, with a few breaks here and there. But yeah, I have a lot of content on this because I think it is, to your point, very important. And I mean, a lot of gay men use apps. There's lots of them. We don't need to name all of them, but
no.
I think that, yeah, I do have a lot of content on this because I've seen my own transformation through it. It was definitely something that I had to work through on my own personal journey. And now I'm able to help others along their personal journey. And for the record, I'm not going to sit here and be pro or against any kind of app because I don't think that's a very useful conversation to have. It's about how we use it.
No, and thank you. Thanks for saying that. And I think that's really important for you, me, and the listener to make clear really clearly, and quickly, is that, and this is a point that I made in my blog post, hookup apps, which I wish that I'd come up with something sort of much more original and pithy and insightful or something. But I'm like, well, it's about hookup apps. Let's just call it hookup apps. Referring to myself in the plural. So what I did, what I wrote in there is that they're ubiquitous, they're everywhere, they're and nothing really comes from the judgment of the using of them, and they're simply a tool.
Yes, exactly.
It's a tool.
That's it. Yeah.
And what judgment comes from that is not almost, it is a reflection of ourselves.
Yep.
And so, this is a judgment-free zone on hookup apps, their use, the frequency of use, and not just the frequency of use of the hookup app, but, because by extension, use a hookup app, you hook up a lot. Use a hookup app a lot. Sorry, you hook up a lot, and that's kind of where the judgment can come in, because it's goes to the awkwardness that many of us can feel about sex.
And that's another topic that I talk a lot about. So they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and you do write and speak and work generally a lot on sex positivity.
Yes, absolutely.
And when it comes to being gay, when it comes to be anywhere on the LGBTIQ plus spectrum, because we don't fit the norm, there is a whole lot of judgment about that. And I just want to acknowledge that judgment and the feelings that we might have of guilt, of shame, of being wrong or whatever. Yeah. That is the topic of like another topic, but it's here. And I want to acknowledge that elephant in the room when we're talking about hookup apps, when we're talking about hooking up, and when we're talking about, to a different extent, but similar, loneliness. And it's the judgment that drips rather unsightfully, in a really unappealing way from those concepts. Not having any of that here, but we need to acknowledge it.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's very common for us to judge. It's almost, as soon as we think, it's part of our cognitive functioning to judge things. But I think it's important to recognize like a judgment in a negative sense that it's not very useful for us to judge in some ways, whether it's apps, sex, loneliness, whatever that may be. And you're right, it is definitely something that we see. We all do it. It's human, but in the gay community, it definitely prevents people from, I think, connecting with each other. And I know that that's a big crux of your message, Phil, is connection. And judgment is absolutely not, it stands in the way of genuine connection.
Right. And listener, viewer, if you wanted any kind of confirmation of why I think Michael's awesome, it's right there. It does. Like the judgment stands in the way.
Yeah.
And that it is often not the judgment of others. We think it's the judgment of others, but really it's self-judgment that stands in our own way, and which stops us pressing play on podcasts, which stops us from reading a book, which stops us from reading a blog, which stops us from having a conversation, which stops us from engaging with us, and perhaps has us reaching for our phones to numb, like on social media, on a hookup app, which has us numbing for, like, by working out, by working, by drinking, by having sex a lot, or whatever it is that, you know, we go to numb rather than dealing with acknowledging what's within us.
All of it, all the things. I mean, those are the ones that I personally are my favorite ways to numb, and avoid the discomfort. So when we say numb, we're really talking about avoiding the discomfort of feeling alone, avoiding the discomfort of feeling not enough, avoiding the discomfort of whatever.
Yeah.
And there's no shortage of ways the world has created for us to numb. No shortage.
Yeah.
Substances, phones, gyms, work. You can numb in Netflix for literally days. You could be listening to podcast numbing in a way, really, right? Instead of focusing on the work within.
Yeah. And so when it comes to apps and hookup apps, and, you know, there's the big one that, of Grindr, and, you know, we love to hate them. We love to hate them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I in the blog post that I wrote, hookup apps, and where there's going to be, there is a link in the episode description to this, to go and read it. But I shared in there my sort of experience of engaging with Grindr, and so I was married, and to a woman, and came out, and then came out to her, and then a few years later we separated. And when we separated, I'm like, all right, you know, I wasn't living in a city that was my own. I was living in Wellington in New Zealand. And I didn't know, like, I wasn't part of the community. I didn't grow up there. I didn't, you know, like I belong, but I wasn't from there. And I belong, but I didn't belong. And I realized that, you know, I how silly is this? I couldn't identify other gay men around me to go and sort of awkwardly flirt or like introduce myself or whatever it was. So I'm like, well, where is everyone? So I downloaded Grindr and I got on there, and whoa, like fresh meat in a small community. But at once it was lovely, but then, you know, and Michael, I want to get into this, you know, did not see the best in humanity and the best of a community on Grindr. But how, in your view, Michael, how in your view do hookup apps, does Grindr, does Scruff influence how we engage with each other as a community?
Oh, great question. On the negative side, I think that, you know, and you alluded to this in your blog post, which is great, by the way, for those who haven't read it, go read it. I call it, it's a minefield of emotional triggers, because it will trigger us in all of the ways, in all the ways. It'll trigger our abandonment wounds through things like ghosting and rejection. It'll trigger our, not enoughness story, our shame story, when people just, very callously reply, not interested, or ew, or whatever they may say. And, people do this because they're assholes in some respect, and they're hurt in their own ways in some respects, and because they're behind a screen. And I always find it very funny when it's the people who don't have any profile picture whatsoever, who are the ones who are usually, not, I shouldn't say usually, who are the ones who are often the most, I would say, rude or not very respectful. But yes, it also normalizes things like racism, right? And homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, all the things. And so it is a place where we see the worst of the worst. And so that is the negative. On the positive, I think that I'll speak to Grindr again because that's the one that I personally use. It is so nice to be living in a world where I can pop on my phone, tap with the tap of a button, have all these men just show up by order of proximity in the sort of order I want them in, with my age ranges and filters and all the things that I want, just show up, and then I can just talk to them or communicate with them, rather, from the comfort of my own home, without having to go on a date, without having to get ready, without having to leave the house. And I think if you asked a gay man 50 years ago, 20 years ago, if they would like something like that, they would be like, what the fuck? Like, you guys over in 2021 are living the life. And so I think that is a very beautiful thing, and it can absolutely help. And I have clients who live in rural USA who that is the only way for them to meet other gay men. And so that is a beautiful thing in and of itself.
And I think that's a really important point. I want to acknowledge the positive here, because when it comes to a topic like hookup apps, their use, we can want to go and focus exclusively on the negative. And the negatives are, they're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. But, for their convenience, for the for what they reflect as the progression of society, and the advancement of the like of I want to say how they reflect the advancement of LGBTIQ plus issues in the community, then that is undoubtedly a positive. But when we're engaging with them, we might have a passing acknowledgement of like going, gee, isn't this super? As we tap the icon and dive on in to the app and see how close or how far away people are. So we might have that moment, but generally we might be coming at it at a point of like almost, and I don't want to sort of speak with hyperbole here, but almost with self-loathing. It's like, oh God, this is the only way that I can actually engage with other gay men. Like, why am I broken? I hate myself for doing this, but here I am. And you might be kind of like scrolling through and chatting for a little while before you actually realize what you're doing. And then you're like, oh, what am I doing? But how do I what's the alternative? Like, what's coming up for you with that kind of, that engagement from a place of negative?
Yeah. So I'm happy you brought that up, because I've run workshops on Grindr specifically, how to meet great guys on Grindr. I've also done lots of teaching on online dating in general for gay and straight audiences, and it sort of remains the same. We think that these apps are the way to date, And we have this preconceived notion that for some reason they replace dating, they replace connection. And that's where we all go wrong. It is a tool, as you said, it is a tool. Think of it, I like to think of it as a search engine. You don't go into Google and put in, I want food,
Yeah.
and then hope, and then think that's going to satiate your hunger. No, you go to Google, you type in very specifically, here's the food I want, and then you go out and you get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that is so the apps are not for replacing connection, replacing dating. It's not that at all. It's just a means, it's a search engine for you to find what you want. And in that, I think they do a very, very good job. They are very good at drawing your network much bigger than you can humanly do, first of all. And then with all the filters and advancements that they have with, all the photos and videos we can do now, you can go pick exactly specifically what you want, but you still need to get up and go meet the person, whether it's a hookup or a date, doesn't matter. And then have the actual connection and say, hi, my name is Michael, nice to meet you, and go through all of the discomfort that's going to bring up, right? And then again, we're back to the discomfort conversation. We have to embrace the discomfort, not run away from it. And I think what happens is we are unwilling to have the discomfort of, taking the next step or whatever that is. And so we end up staying safe behind the screen, thinking, oh, this is easier because I get to just sit in my underwear and watch Netflix while I connect with people online.
Yeah. And that's critical. When it comes to loneliness, moving beyond the thoughts and feelings of loneliness requires us to get uncomfortable, requires us to wrestle with perhaps the really shit thoughts and feelings within ourselves that we're not worthy, that we're not something enough, that we're not buff enough, we're not sexy enough, we're not whatever it is enough, when we're comparing ourselves, the thoughts and feelings within ourselves in that moment, on the couch, in our underwear, watching Netflix, idly scrolling, feeling pretty gross about ourselves because we've eaten like an entire, box of donuts or whatever it is. And then we're comparing ourselves with the projection of other men, what other men are projecting into the world.
Right. And that's all optional. That's all optional. We don't have to do that. Right?
No. But we and it becomes optional when we're aware of it.
Yeah.
And so, we might, have this enormous food baby and, it's like, it's really like we're feeling like pretty bad within ourselves. But then, we see, these, very sexy humans doing their thing on, whether it is on social media or on Grindr or any other hookup app. We are always comparing ourselves. We are always ranking ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to share this. Like I met my partner Jeff through Grindr, and I sort of I remember, and we often laugh about this. Like he came up on my feed, and he like his photo on his feed. I know now it's a very him photo. I know like it's a very him photo, but he's in a like his photo. He's got like he's wearing a friend's sunglasses, and the sunglasses are pretty cool. And I remember looking at him and going, "Oh no, he's a bit too cool for me," and stuff. And he obviously had seen me, and I think he tapped me or something like that, and we just kind of got chatting. But I remember like the first few days of texting, like messaging through Grindr, I'm like, you're really a bit too cool for me. Turns out that he's the right kind of cool for me, and he's a bigger dag, if not a bigger dag than me. So I'm not going to explain the concept of what a dag is to non-Australian and non-Kiwis. I'm trying to think of another word what people in North America use. It'll come to me, but yeah, it's just like someone who's dorky.
Okay.
Maybe dorky. I don't know, but yeah, Dag's just this awesome word. It's like he's such a dag. But yeah, like he's the right kind of dag for me. But these are and this is what I wrote in that blog post about the power of the stories that we tell ourselves as we're scrolling through. And these stories are often played on repeat through our mind without us knowing it.
Yeah.
And so when we're trying to engage with others, we can, rank ourselves in this kind of social hierarchy where we're like, no, I'm too good for them. Like, he's on my level, too good for me, based on nothing more than the stories that we've told ourselves about ourselves and about that other person in that moment with very little information.
And I want to be clear that we tell ourselves these stories anyway. We always have.
Yeah.
Grindr or whatever app has just amplified it and made it much more abundantly clear that that's what we do. But it's not the app's fault for that. Like that's I mean, yes, they don't make it easy, and I would say I would say that they make it very easy to keep going back because they know how to make those notifications hit the dopamine places and all in your brain and feel all those feel good chemicals come out when you get the notification. Someone pays attention, fine. But all the stories we tell ourselves, that's not up to anyone else but ourselves to look at those and develop the awareness of what they are and whether they're useful or not. And if they're not useful, then practice other stories that perhaps are more useful and more conducive to finding what it is that you want, whether you're on there for LTR, whether you're on there to have a one-night hookup, whether you're on there just to meet friends, or sometimes just to chat. I use Grindr sometimes just because to chat.
Yep, me too. And yeah, so it is. I think that's something to very much keep in mind when we're using anything, not using anyone. We don't use people, we use things. But when it comes to engaging in the world, whether that world is virtually through apps on our phones, be they social media or a hookup app, or in real life with actual real people in real situations, which some of us might become a little sort of out of practice of how to be a human amongst other humans right now. But we are constantly telling ourselves stories, and those stories, we look for ways to make them fact. We're constantly looking for evidence of making that fact. And once we know those stories, we can become better with some practice at identifying those stories and going, actually, do I know this to be true? Is this really true right now? Am I ugly? Am I not worthy? Am I, too much? Am I too big? Am I too loud? Am I too something? Am I something not enough? Like, is that actually true? And generally, no, it's not true. But those, when we are, this just occurred to me, Michael. It's probably occurred to you because you're really smart and stuff. But this just occurred to me. When we have reached for our phone and we're feeling the need for some sex, feeling a bit horny, and we kind of want to be in the tender embrace of another man while naked, or men while naked. And we're particularly vulnerable at that time. We're vulnerable. We're reaching out and saying, you know what, like, I want to do the sex with you right now. And that's exquisitely vulnerable. And so when we're going on to hookup apps, whether we know it or not, we are being very vulnerable, which is why when we get ghosted when we get the, yuck comments,
Yeah.
when we get the, no, thank you, like that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It does come from a place of vulnerability for sure. And we, to your point, it reaffirms whatever shame story we're holding on to, whether we know it or not. This I'm not good enough story. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not, maybe I am ugly, right? And all of a sudden this happens and your brain will just boop, evidence. Great. See, you're right. You are. See, Michael, yeah, you're not good enough. See, this guy doesn't like you. When in fact, other people are allowed to not like you. That's okay. Right? You don't like everybody and they don't have to like you. So I like to use the terminology like stay in your lane. Like stay in your lane. Like people don't have to like you and that's okay. You don't want the guy who doesn't like you. You want the one who does. So yes, it hurts.
But
Yes, it's a blow to the ego.
We so do.
Yeah, it sucks for our ego, but like,
Yeah.
it's not your guy. It's not your guy. He doesn't want you. I know it hurts, and I'm not taking away from that.
No.
But it doesn't need to mean anything about you. It doesn't need to mean that you are less than. It just means, he likes anchovies on his pizza and you're a pepperoni pizza. So guess what? He's not gonna like you. I'm sorry. But a pepperoni pizza is fucking great.
Yeah.
Someone else might like that.
Yeah. We could go into like, pineapple on pizzas. With a Hawaiian, which, I'm going to say, actually, I'm okay with pineapple on pizzas. Judge away. If that's going to be the deal breaker, well, then it was never meant to be. But I think when you're right, it's that sort of the pain of the shame, the pain of the shame, and particularly when we do come up on things that we demonstrably cannot change about ourselves.
Yeah. Can I tell you something that happened with me similar to that? Yeah. So, I get rejected all the time, and either it's too old, whatever, too something or not something enough, doesn't matter. But, people like their things. But I'm really self-conscious about my teeth. Like I don't have the most beautiful teeth. So like for me, when people, will reject me for being too old or whatever, that's fine. I don't care. I'm happy with my age. But because it was my teeth, somebody made a comment like, whatever he said, you should just get your teeth fixed or some comment like that. That one was like, oh, it stung right in the chest because I still was feeling very self-conscious about them. So, I like to use it as if I get really triggered by something, then I'm like, okay, I clearly have some work to do within me. Not to say that I'm condoning that kind of behavior or being like that to people. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, if it really does hurt, use that as an opportunity to say, oh, that really hurt. How can I tend to myself? How can I tend to whatever needs are not being met right now? And I think for me, that was a big wake up call to be like, oh yeah, I can handle rejection. I don't care if people think. Then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do when it hits home, right?
Yeah. And for me, in a way, with kind of in a similar way, the beard is very polarizing. And it's like, well, that beard, that's amazing, and various comments of the beard, and through to like, no, it's disgusting. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Like, no. And for me, I'm like, why would you write that to someone? Why would you take the time to tell someone that you don't like them in that way? Because of that. I'm like, thank you. It doesn't mean that, it's a nice experience to receive that, because you don't want to receive that. But it was like, thank you. Like, you've outed yourself as not being worthy of me.
Yeah.
Like, if facial hair, which can come and go, is going to be the deal breaker for you, you're not my person. You're not,
Right.
you're not the person, you're not the man, you know, whether it's in, you know, asexual, you know, way, trying to, like, the word escaped me there, but, you know, for the purpose of sex or for the purpose of actually having you in my life. It's like, really? Like, no, thank you so much. Next.
Yeah, thank you, next.
Yeah, and so I'm keen to explore, Michael, what we, when we reach for reach for the comfort of another man through the hookup app, when we realize that we're kind of, that we feel the need to have some of the sex, and we reach for a hookup app, but within us, we're actually experiencing loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, part of the driver for reaching for another man or men when we're experiencing loneliness might feel like we need we need some sex or want some sex, but actually what we're needing in that time is a deeper connection.
Yeah.
So essentially, beyond the cock, we're looking to be seen and heard, and critically to feel that we belong somewhere.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm keen to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously it's a fundamental human need, that need to belong, be seen, and be heard. How we get that need met, many different ways, some more useful than others, some more, some have a greater success rate than others. I'll tell you a little bit about my story, just because, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but how I knew that I was going about it the wrong way is, I had come out of a breakup. I think I've told you this before, Phil. I had come out of a breakup with someone that I loved very deeply, and it was a very terrible breakup that affected me in a very bad way. And so, you know, conventional wisdom was, if you want to get over someone, get under somebody else. Okay, great. Sounds good.
Get back on the horse.
Right. And I wouldn't have to deal with the loneliness. I wouldn't have to deal with the pain of him leaving. I wouldn't have to deal with all the shitty, negative emotions, discomfort, there's that word again, that comes with just crying it out, or heartbreak. And there's Grindr, this beautiful thing. I can just go on and just focus on that and get under everybody else. And I did over and over and over and over and over. Lo and behold, I wasn't feeling any better. And I did this for months, and it just got worse. It just got worse because the pain was still there. The discomfort was still there. I wasn't actually dealing with the pain. And the only way to deal with pain is to walk right through it. I was trying to skirt around it with all these other people. And don't get me wrong, I had lots of sex. The sex was fine. It was not scratching the itch.
There's a ringing endorsement. No, the sex was fine.
Fine. I mean, it's a mixed bag. Some was phenomenal. There's left a lot to be desired. But the point was, it was not feeling what really needed to happen within me, which was tend to that pain. And I was lonely. I missed my boyfriend. That's what was really going on. I missed my boyfriend. I wanted someone to cuddle with. I wanted someone to stay the night, because that's what I wanted. And what I actually wanted, what I thought I wanted, was not that. And so it came to me after a hookup, you know, walking home one night, and I'm like, I feel worse than I felt before I did this. And wait a minute, every time I've done this, I have felt worse after it. And what I thought the answer was, okay, well then just do it again. Like, oh, just have another one, then you'll feel better. But that orgasm does not last that long. You know, orgasm only lasts what, a minute, maybe, if that even. And then it's back to the drawing board. So for me, yeah, that's how I knew. It was when I looked back and I reflected, you know, as I was walking home, like, did this fill what I really wanted it to fill. I didn't mean for that to say it that way.
I'm just going to be, a lot cruder. Did it fill the hole that really needed filling?
Yes. So that's one way that I knew. And then when I can draw the line between those days and when I hooked up and really did the work on myself and um, learning what was just truly I want sex or figuring out what I actually want. Because I think what happens is, in your question, we feel lonely. I don't know if we actually know what's going on really. I think it's really, really useful to say, why am I going for this right now? Is my dick saying, hey, pay attention to me, I want something? Or is there something else at play?
Yeah. 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 And tell me exactly how to do that in the moment. And I'm taking notes in that moment, because if there is a way of, essentially when you're getting a head full of steam, right, and you're building towards, you're essentially on a railway track,
mm-hmm.
and that's ending in one place. It's very hard at times you can't deviate essentially from the railway track. But it's hard to build into that process, without sounding like a killjoy or some kind of Puritan or something like that. But to go, this is a point where we can pause and say, what do I really need in this moment? Do I really need? And so what I love about your share there, Michael, is I think something that we can all relate to. It's when, and this is what I wrote in my blog post, is that if you leave a hookup feeling emptier than when you went in, perhaps what you weren't after was sex.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's often with the benefit of, looking in the rearview mirror and looking at a pattern of behavior there that you go, ooh, right.
That's it.
And that could be sex, that can be working out, that can be drinking, that can be recreational or prescription, drug abuse, that can be travel, that can be gambling, that can be working out, whatever it is. Numbing is numbing is numbing is numbing is numbing. And it's only when we can look retrospectively and go, ooh, there's that behavior there. I've had lots of, might see a trail of broken relationships where, until you actually get that retrospective perspective, that we can actually go, yeah. But it's hard to do that, hard to project that perspective.
Yeah. And you're right. Sometimes you don't know until it's happened. And that's fine. We don't want to shame ourselves. We don't want to beat the shit out of ourselves after we do it, right? That's not going to solve the problem either. It's a reflection of, oh, okay, well, that's not how that was supposed to go, or that's maybe not what I'm looking for. And then approaching it with curiosity and compassion, as I advocate all the time. Always approach yourself first and foremost with curiosity and compassion, and then you will find that you will also approach life and the world and other people with the same. But we have to start with ourselves. So I like what you said about you don't always know, right? I don't always know. I'm not. I like to think I'm self-aware, but I can't guarantee. My brain's very, very tricky. My brain will give me all kinds of different justifications for behaviors and things and habits, and you're right. It can seem, numbing can seem justified if it's something like, oh, I'm just working, like that's oh, that sounds good. Or people pleasing. I think sometimes people numb with people pleasing, right?
Yeah. If I do this, if I please you, you will like me and you will accept me. If that's not like the dangerous, like one of the most dangerous slopes to slide down when it comes to the path to disconnection with self and a source of loneliness, particularly, and I know right now that this is content on the Gay Men's Brotherhood in your podcast, Gay Men's Going Deeper. But almost within ourselves, like we are trained, we have been trained that to make ourselves, like to get through adolescence, is to please those around us. Yeah. Particularly if we're really struggling within ourselves about aspects of ourselves that we don't think are acceptable.
Yeah.
Be that sexuality, be that, other kind of other aspects of ourselves. But we are trained. And we are also trained to be a friend. To have friends is to be friends. And to be a friend, and to offer, to drive someone to the airport, to whatever it is, and put ourselves last.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm loving that on people pleasing.
Yeah, and we're built for it. Like our survival as children is based on people pleasing. We are taught, like, if we don't please our parents, they will not feed us, right? Like we're not thinking this consciously, it's a subconscious thing, but we want to please the people that house us, feed us, take care of us. Like it's one of the first lessons we learn when we're an infant. Like we need these people, so keep them happy. And then we just carry that with us all through life. At least I did for a very, very, very long time.
Me too, and still, and I see it everywhere,
and still.
And so I'm keen to come back to that point in time when we're walking away from the hookup, we're leaving the hookup, and the feeling of the orgasm has worn off, and there we are again within ourselves, back where we were. And the point that you raised, I really want to underline here and essentially put in bold, because at that point we've got a decision to make. We need to realize that we have a decision that we can make there. We can berate ourselves. We can be hard on ourselves and say, God, you're such a fucking idiot. How did you do that again?
Yeah.
Right? And essentially shame ourselves, and shame ourselves into quiet, shame ourselves into submission, and putting ourselves in a place where actually it makes it harder to take any kind of different action. I was going to say corrective action, but like different action. And then we find ourselves, in the coming hours or coming days or coming weeks or coming months, and taking a step back, and it's in that place of like, God, I'm such a fucking idiot. It's like, never going to do that again.
Yeah.
I'm never going to do that again. And, probably while walking back to public transport, walking back to the car, or walking back to our house, or whatever it is, you get your phone out and you hold down, the icon for the app long enough so that all the apps shake, and you press the X, deleted. No, not using Grindr again, not getting on Scruff. That's the problem. That's the problem. Me using that has led me to feeling like this. No, never again. Cold turkey.
Yeah, but Grindr doesn't house your loneliness. You do. So, like, honey, you can delete all the apps you want. Yeah, you can delete all the apps you want. It's gonna find a way, because it's not in the app. It's in here. It's in your body. It's in your mind. It's in your heart. Like, that's where it is. So it'll find a way. And then once you do that work of acknowledging, hey, maybe there's something more that I'm craving here, then worlds open up. Like, then the possibilities. Like, I think as we say many times, awareness is the first step or half the battle. And that's why I love the work you do, Phil, because I think it's very, very important that people, I think your work is that next step. Like, okay, I've identified this. Where do I go from here? And I think that's where I would say film a call. That's where we need to
go. Oh, thanks. And I'm really happy. Thank you. Thank you that's sort of the how my work is being received by you, because this is just the stuff of life.
Yeah.
To be a gay man in the world now means that we have the wondrousness of technology in our pocket. The wondrousness, and hopefully, I really do hope, wherever you are listening in or watching in the world, that you are free to be you. Mm-hmm. You are free to express yourself sexually. That is not a luxury that all of us have in the world. If we are privileged to live in a society where we're not going to be stoned, we're not going to be beaten for hooking up with someone, for giving in / acknowledging / embodying our sexuality, if we're not in that kind of, in a society where that level of judgment exists, we need to, going right back to the start of the conversation, Michael, like one of the pros of this, of the hookup apps is that, it reflects a society where this is okay. Mm-hmm. If not okay, it's legal. But when we believe the stories that we're telling ourselves, however those stories have manifested and however they're playing out in that moment, when we believe that we are not worthy of being seen, heard, or belonging. Yeah. And when we get onto hookup apps and we're comparing ourselves to the beautiful bodies that we see, and seeing the behaviors that can manifest online, and what passes for what we think passes as acceptable behavior online, the latent or the overt racism, the latent or overt homophobia, transphobia, phobia. And we start telling ourselves stories that to be gay in Toronto, to be gay in Sydney, to be gay in Melbourne, to be gay in Auckland, to be gay in New York, whatever, means that I need to be like this. That's dangerous. Yeah. Because all we need to be is ourselves. And then denying ourselves the emotions that we're feeling and the signs that our emotions are giving us to pay attention to, mm-hmm, actually does require an enormous amount of courage. Because the easy thing is to then, if we're back at that point of deleting the app, purging it from our lives, and we might go home and throw out all the porn or whatever it is. It's like, no, just let me down there before I feel shit about it. I'm getting rid of it. Like all the sex toys or whatever it is. It's like, no, this is bad. Purging it. I'll be better from then on. Right there, that's your clue. That's a big fucking clue. Right there. Shame is in action here. Yeah. Don't do anything. Let it be. What are you trying to tell yourself? You're allowed to be. You're allowed to be who you are.
I think that's one of the benefits of having a coach, a counselor, a therapist,
Yeah.
someone, because we don't see it. Oftentimes it's a blind spot. It's like a fish doesn't know it's in the ocean, right? We don't see it until something's gone terribly wrong. And
Yeah.
sure, sometimes that's what it takes, and that's fine if that's your journey. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's another way, and that's why I always tell people, one of the things I love about coaching is you don't need to wait until you're at a space of, you know, like mental illness to worry about your mental health.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need to get into an addiction before you start thinking about, oh, wait, maybe here are some things I can do day to day. Here's someone in my life who cares about my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, whatever that may be. And I think that has been one of the biggest, I would say, one of the biggest benefits that clients see unknowingly, because they, you know, inevitably they come to a coach with help with something.
Yeah.
But there's always this other thing behind the scenes that they don't even know is there that we uncover. And it's like, oh, hey, here's the real reason. Here's the real thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's why, again, it is important to have resources like your like your blog, this podcast right here, the Game Men's Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people doing great work in this field. So I think that gives me hope. But yeah, sometimes we don't know, we don't know our shame stories until it's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah. And that's okay. That's okay. Speaking as someone who for years, you know, and about my sexuality, it was like, no, like hiding, you know, hiding, you know, browsing history. Like, no, and you know, no, never again. No, not doing that. Not doing that. And you know, actually, you know, it makes me sad to think that I did that to myself.
Yeah.
But it is, you're right. In that moment of, you know, once the shame storm has passed and we recognize that, you know, well, that was a delightful experience that reflected, that reminded me of my humanity. And, you know, well, what's that? But we might have that realization that we are lonely.
Yeah.
We might have that realization that, you know, indeed, we might actually be gay. Or whatever that uncomfortable realization is of a truth about ourselves. We then have a decision to make. And the decision is clear. It mightn't feel like it's clear, but we double down and try it again within ourselves. Or we put our hand up and say, you know what? This needs to come out of me. And recognizing that there are people in your life who have earned that right to hear that expression. Because that source of loneliness can feel like there's nobody there.
Yeah.
But that's our tricky mind.
Yeah.
Saying that we're not worthy. Like we're broken, we're wrong, we'll be shamed, we'll be judged, and we don't like that. So we avoid it again. So we've taken that other decision to try again. But this is something that is a theme throughout my work. So, you know, it takes so much courage to do something different.
Yeah.
And Michael, you're right. Whether that person is a coach, whether that person is a podcaster or a blogger or, you know, a speaker, or, you know, a friend or a relative, a counselor, a therapist, whatever it is, there is always the opportunity to speak up and then do something different recognizing that it is scary as fuck. But that's okay, because there's connection, an opportunity for connection in that vulnerability, an opportunity for connection in that authenticity. And that is uncomfortably the type of connection that we long for. So, Michael, I want to sort of wrap this up and take this back to a point that you raised before. A hookup app, getting mad at an app is cathartic. But I think here, the main point is that we're getting angry. We're feeling something. Like disappointed, frustrated, whatever. All of these are signs.
Yeah.
But it is like, you know, yelling at the wind. It's just doing its thing.
Yeah.
And
the app is doing its job.
Yeah. What will you then do with it? And I see this everywhere. When I was using Grindr, see this everywhere. People longing for the real connection, but not knowing how to do it. And so doing it in a way that they think or feel is the way to do it as a gay man.
Yeah. Or that feels good, or that's easy, or that other people are doing, so therefore that must be the only way. Like, there's so many reasons why we do that. You know, it just feels fucking good sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
but
absolutely not.
It's about, if you are looking for a connection, like the, again, whether a romantic connection or platonic or whatever that is, you absolutely can find that on Grindr. I mean, look at you, right? You met your partner there. I've met great guys on Grindr, which is why that's what the name of my workshop. But it absolutely, you do need the courage in so many ways. You have to have the courage to show up, to face the potential rejection. I shouldn't even say potential. There will be rejection, and all of those emotional, that emotional minefield I talked about at the beginning. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. I mean, whether you do it online on an app or whether you do it in person at a bar, whether you go to a book club, there will be rejection in the world, and it sucks and it hurts. But having the courage to get up and do it again for the possibility of finding that connection that you're craving, I think is totally worth it. And there's a lot of ways we can deal with. I'd rather look at it this way. I'd rather deal with rejection than the pain of not trying, because that's also uncomfortable in its own way. You could be uncomfortable and get rejected, or you can get uncomfortable, just stay behind the wall, feeling safe, sure, but at what cost? At what cost are you choosing safety here?
And no action is a choice too.
Yes, it is.
Staying where you are is a choice.
And sometimes that is the right choice, and sometimes it's not. And the question is really looking at yourself and saying, okay, I need to get out of the cave. I need to take a little brick out of my wall down. Just one brick. Just try with one brick, right? And on the topic of apps, I think what I teach is you absolutely can go on a hookup app and find friends. I have many examples of this. Sometimes it starts as a hookup and ends up as a friendship. Sometimes it just starts, there's an intention of a hookup, but it doesn't go that way, and you end up having a great friend. But it always comes down to stating what you want. You don't go into, it's like, you don't go to the Google and say food. You say, I want a pizza with these toppings on it, and then you're going to get results back, right? So not everyone's going to be the right one. But if you state, hey, my name's Michael, I'm living in Toronto, I'm looking for awesome friends, I'm looking to expand my network, state specifically what you want. Because when people just show up and be like, hi, and there's nothing in their profile, they don't tell any stories about, or their pictures don't tell a story about who they are, like it's you're going to get vague. I say vague profiles get vague results. You're going to get a little bit of nothing and a little bit of everything. And so state on the profile that you're looking for meaningful connections, that you're looking for friendships. Put it right out there. The right people will be like, oh yeah, me too, awesome, and then send a message. The people who aren't looking for that aren't going to message you, and that's okay.
Yeah, there's a whole sort of series of things there that, you know, in stating preferences, you know, it is there's opportunities there to explore those, and you know, in the exercise of privilege, the exercise of, you know, but you're allowed to have your preferences. Of course, it's how they're communicated, and they're also an indication of your, like, and we all have this, our own prejudices.
Mm-hmm.
I want to state that really clearly as well. But that is an enormous topic of its own time, that is worthy of more than just a footnote at the end of a coffee date. Michael, as always, I love having you here. How can people find you?
All the ways. Okay. So you can find me on Instagram. That is my preferred method of communication. My Instagram handle is Wellismo, WELLISMO_coach. You can find me in the Gay Men's Brotherhood. If you're not in the Gay Men's Brotherhood and you're gay, go join us. It's a free Facebook group. We have over 3,600 men. We talk about personal development, mental health, sexuality. You can find me on Facebook, and you can absolutely please go to my website, www.wellismo.com. I write blogs similar to Phil, and you
really
can learn a lot more about me there. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
They're awesome. They're awesome. And listener, viewer, if you are really keen to connect with Michael, and like, you get a discount if you come, if you go through my site, or say that Phil sent you.
Yes.
And that sort of that helps you. That helps Michael. That helps me.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And Michael, as always, I want to say thank you so much for the simple fact of you being you, and you being you in the world, and you doing what you do in the world. I see you, I do love you, and I love what you do in the world. It's bloody awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Right back at you. As always, I love the work you do, and I love you and your work. And I know that this is a very, very important topic to talk about.
Thank you. And in wrapping this up, I was about to say, you know, I'm such a bad, like, social media person or whatever. Friend, viewer, and listener of this podcast, if you've got any questions for me, reach out to me on social media. I am on Facebook, I am on Instagram, I am on Twitter, kind of Pinterest, all the places, as Michael says. Send me an email, connect at, what's that?
YouTube.
Oh, I am on YouTube too. Yes. Yeah. Oh God. Thank you. See, this is why I'm bad at this. And it's hard to, like, sound. I don't know. I listen to other people do it, and it's so seamless. And I do it, and I'm like, words fail. Yeah. The tube of viewing. And yeah, send me an email. Connect at thelonelinessguy.com. Just reach out to me. And I do have, I'm building a very, like, it's very small, but for a small monthly charge of $9.95 Australian dollars a month, you can come and join a small Facebook group for premium members of the Loneliness Guy. So you can subscribe so you don't miss any of the content, but you can become a premium member for $10 Australian a month, and come and get some real support from other gay men who are working out how to put the best of themselves in the world, and getting support directly from me as they are doing it. It's a beautiful thing, and it's just wondrous. You're always welcome there, and also I can vouch for the awesome work of the Gay Men's Brotherhood. So, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Go finish the last dregs of your coffee, and go and be awesome. Thank you so much for joining Michael and I on this chat today. We'll catch you next time.